Hey friends. Alright, I've been seeing this all over my Facebook feed and I can't get it out of my mind, so I gotta try it. A sourdough croissant loaf. It's supposed to be flaky, buttery like a croissant, but also like a sourdough. I mean, it can't not be good. I've seen a few different ways to do it. Some of them was like, proof it for a while on the counter, then you gotta do a proof in the fridge for like 18 hours or something like that. And then another one was like, I just use my regular loaf method and then I just grate cold butter into the stretch and folds. So I'm like, that's the one we're gonna try. So I'm just gonna go with my regular sourdough loaf method, and during my 2 sets of stretch and folds, I'm gonna fold in some cold grated butter and let's see what happens. Step number 1, 350 grams of room temperature filtered water. Close enough. 60 grams of sourdough starter. I have it in a big old container because I was dehydrating some Virgie and this is what's left over. But she's ripe and ready to go. 60 grams approximately. Oh, dang, I'm good. Let's stir that up. 500 grams of all-purpose flour in my big mayonnaise container. All right, close enough. Clear that out. 10 grams of sea salt. 10. Right, let's mix it together. You're basically just trying to get it all mixed together to where there's no more wet or dry spots, but it's gonna look very shaggy. That's what you want, shaggy dough. Now it has to rest for 30 minutes before you do anything with it. Now you're gonna start grabbing from the side and pulling up and toward the middle, and then grab again and rotate each time you do. This is your first set of stretch and folds, and you're gonna do this until you feel the dough really start to tighten up. Just 4 to 6 pulls might be all it takes, and then you're gonna cover it back up and wait another 30 minutes. Okay, now it's time for our second stretch and fold, and I have some grated frozen butter that I'm gonna start incorporating into the stretch and folds. I'm gonna do half of this butter. This was a whole stick. Half of that stick of butter in the stretch and folds now, and then tomorrow morning after it has proofed all night, during the final stretch and fold, I'm gonna put the other half of the butter. And so make sure you put that butter back in the freezer. Cover it back up with a wet towel and let it rest on your countertop all night long. It needs to be at about 70 to 75 degrees, no more than 75, or it might make the butter start to melt. And look how beautiful she rose overnight, y'all. Now it's time for our final shaping, and we're gonna add the rest of that butter in. Go ahead and flour your surface real good, and then as carefully as you can, turn out your dough from the bowl. I like to use this little scraper to get everything off the side. Now we're gonna stretch it out and almost make like think about like making a pizza dough crust, okay? You're just gonna stretch it out as far as it'll go without tearing. Try to get it even, and then you're gonna sprinkle the rest of the butter on there, just like this. All right, y'all, I'm sorry in advance for this bad angle, but what I'm doing is I'm rolling the dough up on top of itself, and then I kind of take my fingers and gently drag it across the countertop to make a ball. And the more you do this, the top's gonna like kind of tighten up and smooth out. Now get yourself a bowl. I'm using that same bowl I had my butter in, and I'm putting a towel that I can put some flour on top like this so that my dough doesn't stick. Now just gently put your loaf in there with the top facing down onto the floured surface. And if you got to pinch any seams together, go ahead and do that. This is going to be the underneath of the loaf, so it don't really matter if it's not super pretty. Sprinkle some flour on that too so it don't stick to your parchment paper. Then cover it up and let it rest for 45 minutes to an hour. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees. And then take you some parchment paper, and you're going to turn the dough out onto the parchment paper just like this. Tuck in the sides to tighten up the top if it got a little bit loose on you. I usually like to do that to smooth things out a bit. Then I'll sprinkle some more flour on top and kind of smooth it out. That's going to make those designs on top really pop, and I think it adds a little bit of extra crunch too. Then you can use a really sharp knife or a bread lame like this if you got one, and do your scores on top. Time to put it in the Dutch oven, and I like to smooth out the parchment paper on the side as best as I can. I don't preheat my Dutch oven, but you can if that's the method you like to do. I just use a cold one, and I put it in a preheated 450-degree oven for 40 minutes with the lid on. After 40 minutes, this is what it looks like. Take your lid off and put it back in for 10 more minutes. Holy cow, this thing looked amazing already. Whoa. She's all done. Look at this. Okay, this might not look that pretty to you, but this just, to me, that means it's gonna be flaky and kind of layery like a croissant. Like, I think this worked, y'all. I cannot wait to cut into this loaf. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It feels so much softer than my normal loaf. Oh, I can already tell it's gonna be good. Okay, it doesn't look that much different, but it feels so soft and crackly, like a biscuit. Ooh. Well, it ain't pretty. Oh my gosh. I don't really care that it came apart like this. It's because of the butter. It's so soft and buttery. Has a croissant kind of taste, but sourdough. I could hurt myself on this one. Normally I cut a piece of bread and then toast it and put butter on it. You don't need to with this one. The butter is actually all throughout the bread. 10 out of 10. I literally just want to cut the bottom off and eat the bottom because it's like a crispy, buttery biscuit. It's my loaf. I can do what I want.